Good morning. I'm Joe White. This is the Grow Real Estate Investing Podcast. Today we're going to go hyper local and talk about a neighborhood here in Philadelphia, the Pennsport neighborhood. So the podcast really isn't going to be for the investing community so much as directed more towards a Philadelphian. So somebody who's interested in perhaps investigating moving to the Philadelphia Pennsport neighborhood, or somebody who's interested in investing in the Philadelphia Pennsport neighborhood. Someone who might be a buy and hold rental property investor, someone who might be a house flipper, someone who wants to buy a house, renovate it, and then to resell it. And I have a lot of experience with Pennsport, and I have a lot of opinions about Pennsport, as I do with most Philadelphia neighborhoods. But in particular with Pennsport, I actually live here with my wife and my daughter. This is where our home is located, and this is our neighborhood. But I also work here. I own a property management company, Grow Property Management, and we are a Pennsport property management company. We manage quite a few properties here in this neighborhood, so I'm familiar with it from a couple different angles. Pennsport is bordered by a couple different neighborhoods. Whitman to the south, and Whitman's an interesting neighborhood because not a lot of Pennsport folks actually know the neighborhood that touches ours, which is Whitman. So if you were to ask the average Pennsport resident what neighborhood is south of you, they wouldn't even actually know the name of Whitman. Whitman's kind of an interesting neighborhood. So as you head south, Philadelphia kind of seems to get affected by its arterials. So anytime you actually have a road that's meant for a lot of traffic, the neighborhood changes. Whitman, the neighborhood can go down a little bit from Pennsport, and then if you were to head north, you head into Queen Village. The neighborhood and the prices jump considerably. The neighborhood becomes a lot more walkable. Queen Village is very adjacent to historical Philadelphia. Not too far of a walk to get to the Liberty Bell, not too far of a walk to get to Independence Hall. Now to our west, we actually have Dickinson Narrows, which at probably about 3 years ago was voted America's best neighborhood. So Pennsport is kind of bordered by a couple interesting neighborhoods. And what's interesting about Pennsport is it kind of started its life. The homes that we see now, the original homes that were built, they were built for longshoremen. So they were kind of built, including the home I live in, it was kind of built for a very modest begin user. Now, of course, a 100-year-old home, a lot of these things we now value. The random width red pine floors, the brick homes, etc. These are things we might value. But out of the gate, they were actually meant to be kind of more of a modest thing. And Pennsport actually is kind of a neat neighborhood to live in. It's very much a community neighborhood. You have entities like EOM, which is a community center. They do a massive amount of things for kids, different programs such as t-ball, soccer. They all run themselves extremely inexpensively. So it's not high cost to participate in any of these things. And I think it's more directed towards the community than it is to basically to generate money. So I think their funding basically goes to give back to the community. We have a lot of parks here in Philadelphia, and a lot of communities really a lot of people in the community really seem to get involved with the parks, and it's an excellent way to get to know folks. We have a farmer's market. Pennsport, like a lot of neighborhoods in Philadelphia, we have 44 houses per block. So just walking 2 blocks, you're just going to encounter so many neighbors, and it doesn't take long for you to build relationships. It doesn't really take long for you to become part of the community. And that's kind of one of the strengths I feel that you kind of see with Pennsport. And Pennsport actually has, its share of hot spots. There's a lot of great little gastropubs. My favorites, everyone would have their own favorites. We do frequent a place called Moonshine quite often. We love a place called the Mifflin Tavern. There's very super nice staff. There's a place that's been here forever, O'Jung's. It's under new ownership, and the food has been just increasingly getting better and better and better. As far as coffee shops go, I think a lot of people love a coffee shop called Grindcore. My favorite coffee shop is a place called Herman's, and it's kind of a neat environment there. Herman seemed to get very involved in the community. It's kind of a nice feeling when you're actually there. There's a great place for brunch called The Dutch. very good food. Now, we have our share of parks, as I mentioned, including Dickinson Square. And my wife and I, and actually my daughter, were very involved with the park. And there's a large community, including park cleanups. We've planted 10 trees in the park over the course of 2 years. And again, the park cleanups, you'll just see them extremely well attended. Maybe sometimes as much as 30, 40 people will actually show up. Neighbors will actually show up. And I don't think it's just about getting the park clean as much as it's about developing a sense of community. Certainly does get the park clean, and certainly great to get trees planted. But, I think it's about getting out, meeting your neighbors, and kind of generating that kind of thing. Now, the other nice thing about Pennsport that you're going to find, and this is a little bit diminishing as the years are going on, but unlike other Philadelphia neighborhoods, you can actually park your car in Pennsport. You can just pretty much drive into the neighborhood, within 5 minutes find yourself a space. Now that's been going backwards as Pennsport's really developing at a fast clip, and it's starting to become permit parking, and you need a permit to be able to park. And what gets difficult about a permit is permit parking is if you have overnight guests. Say your family comes and stays with you for a weekend, they can't get a permit because they don't live here. So it's a little tough for them to park their car and have to move it somehow every 2 hours. But Pennsport, you can still find parking. You can still find unlimited parking where you don't need a permit. Pennsport is going to be one of your more functional neighborhoods. It's easy to get in here. You get off of the highway. There's an off-ramp. You're immediately in your neighborhood. As soon as you want to leave Philadelphia, say you travel for work, you're instantly back on the highway. You have stores here. You have your largest grocery stores not too far away. You have Target, Walmart, variety of different grocery stores, all right here. Very easy to get to them. Home Depot, Lowe's are all within a walking distance of Pennsport. As far as the mix of homes, and again, I'm coming from it from an investment angle as well as a livability angle. So as far as the mix of properties, you're going to see that Pennsport has massive new construction. So that we have these very large, very nice homes that are going up at a regular clip. But mostly you're going to see single-family homes. You are going to see a few condominiums, but you're really not going to feel that there's a lot of condominiums here. You are going to see a couple apartment buildings, but you're not really going to see any high-rise. I can't actually think of a high-rise apartment building that would be in Pennsport. You'll see these old schools that have been purchased, that have been converted into apartment buildings, but you're not going to see any apartment buildings. You're certainly going to see your share of new construction. As far as the original 100-year-old homes, they're not going to be as large as they would be in some other neighborhoods. Again, they were built for longshoremen back in the 20s, including the house that I actually currently live in now, the house that I'm actually right now broadcasting from. They're not going to be the largest properties. If you go to Point Breeze, you're going to find a home that may be 20 feet, maybe 22 feet. Fishtown, you're going to probably typically find these older, original 100-year-old homes that are around maybe 18 feet, 16 feet. In Pennsport, you can go down to maybe 14 foot wide. Often you'll see also 18-foot wide homes. But you're not going to generally get a larger home with a larger backyard. Not typically anyways. So, from an investment perspective, Pennsport's very interesting because it's developing so quickly. It's appreciating so quickly. You basically had, at one time, you don't really see this dynamic anymore because we really don't have shells anymore. But what we were seeing is that the worst house on the block, the house that was basically in shell condition, would be purchased and it would be renovated and it would immediately become the best house on the block, improving the values for everyone. Now Pennsport is more about getting in larger developments, knocking down some of these dilapidated warehouses and putting in these very large, nicer homes. My question is, how long can Pennsport really sustain itself? Basically a 100-year-old home really isn't depreciating. But these homes that were built in the 80s, the 90s, the year 2000, 2010, 2020, you can tell how old it is. So these buildings are tending to depreciate. So when you look at a home, you can say, okay, well, that home is very much a 2017 home. You can just tell. So the question is how are these newer homes going to age, and are we going to start seeing that they're going to age, and will Pennsport, in 15, 17 years start to see decline? That to me would be kind of interesting to see. So, all right, well, that's my take on Pennsport. Hopefully you found it helpful. Certainly do have takes on other neighborhoods, so take a look at those, and happy investing.